Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the author of Splidge the Cragflinger, and in this video I want to tell you about the process of writing, well, at least my process of writing Splidge. It's been a great adventure actually. So how did I write Splidge? Well, I told you in a previous video that it started back in 1988 with the idea, and I simply wrote the title first of all, having no idea what the story was going to be about, and then I wrote the first line, and slowly it evolved. Now, I am that kind of writer. There are writers who like to plot their story right from the beginning. They take a pad and they write down the key points of the story and they work it all out before they even write a sentence. Now, if you can do that, I think that's very clever because you've got the story, you know how it's going to end, and you can just sit down and write it. If you've got research to do, then you can go and do your research. This is why I've got so many books around me. You can read up on the various things and make notes and start like that. Unfortunately, I don't write like that. No, I write the other way. Some people write just off the cuff. They might have some vague ideas of what the book will be about. They don't know until they start writing, and that's the same with me. Even though I had written the book back in 1988, the original story, and had this version of it, I essentially took the elements of it and then threw the rest away because I wanted to make the story a bit more grown up. It was quite simplistic in the past, and I wanted to make it, as I say, more deeper, with some emotion, with some with stronger peril, stronger storylines, beef up the characters a bit, and make everybody a little bit older and less babyish. So what I did was I prefer to write on my laptop, like so many people do these days. I don't have a pen, or I don't use a pen anymore, longhand, although I know some people still do. I certainly don't use a scroll, and I no longer possess a typewriter. But I used to. I mean, when I typed up the first one, I typed it up. I got a friend to type it up in neat, but I did try to type it up with an old-fashioned typewriter. But I use a program on my laptop called Google Docs. Now, for me, it works because it's an online word processing program, and it means wherever I happen to be, and I do travel around quite a bit, I can log on, pick up the story where I left off, and just bash out the next bit. And of course, all I'm aiming to do is to get the first draft. And that doesn't really matter whether it's good, bad or indifferent. If I can't think of clever ways to put things, it doesn't matter. It's just about getting the story out. You're sort of, you're not regurgitating, you're gurgitating. You're vomiting up this story, if I can put it like that. So you just get out the bare bones of this story. Now, as I say, I kind of work off the cuff. But what's interesting is as you work, ideas come to you and you start doing that, and the characters come to you. And once a character is born, oh dearie me, things start to go awry. Now honestly, the characters take over the story. You think you're in charge, but I found as I was writing, Splidge might say something and go, oh, well, I wasn't going to go down that road. No, we were going to go this way. But Splidge has already said, I think we should go to the top of the mountain, or I think we should go and explore inside the house, or we should go down this tunnel. Well, I didn't know there was a tunnel. And suddenly Snot is in agreement, and Doreen is agreeing, and suddenly the story is going off in a direction I didn't know. Now, I go along with it because the characters are in this world. Admittedly, I mean, it's all in my head, but they're in this world and it's as if they're real. And I'm quite happy to follow them along because I've got this belief that if it all goes bad, I can always come back. I can always go, well, let's delete that lot or save that and put it aside somewhere else and start again. But so far, I haven't had to, because the characters seem to know how the story evolves. Suddenly, the evil Baron, Giles Frogmorton, will come into a scene and I think, oh golly, I didn't know the Baron was round the corner here listening at the door or doing whatever it was he was doing, and suddenly that adds a new element and we're thinking, oh my goodness, where are we going to go with this? So when I'm writing the story, I'm very much like the reader, like yourselves. I don't know how it's going to end, and that's so interesting, because when I sit down and write, and I'm almost reading the words before they're written. It's not quite like that, because I do have a general idea. There is part of me which is in control, but it is fascinating how the writing process works. I'm sure it's different for everybody, and if you've tried to write, or you have written, or you do write, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, give it a whirl. You'll be amazed at how ideas do just come to you. Anyway, I tend to sort of work like that for about 60 to 70% of the book, and I get to that point where I start becoming a little bit worried that I need to rein in all the ideas, all the different strands, all the things that have happened, and try and build up towards an end, and it's all got to make sense. And that takes a little bit of planning. So that's when I go for a walk along the seafront. I live near the coast, and I'll go for a long walk along the seafront and think about, now, how am I going to get to there? Oh yeah, we could do that, we could do that. Yeah, what if that? That sometimes means that I have to go back earlier in the story. So I may be near the end, but sometimes I think I need to plant that idea or show that that was there much earlier in the story. So I'll go back and rewrite a scene or add a bit into a scene, so that you're dropping a bit in, so that when people read it from the beginning all the way through, they don't know that I've dropped in all these seeds of story ideas or red herrings or anything like that. They're just going, oh, that's interesting, I wonder what that means. And then eventually, of course, all these things have to be resolved, and they are resolved. At least I hope they are. Sometimes I get to a point, as I did only the other day. I was writing a bit and I thought, oh, in book 2, I'm working on the draft of the sort of the second to third draft of book 2 as we speak, and there was a bit I was working on and I thought, hang on a minute, this character is in prison. Wait a minute, how did he get in prison? He escaped prison the last time, so I had to quickly go back and work out, oh yeah, that's where he's supposed to have been captured again. So sometimes your brain is all over. Some people like to write notes down all over the place, which is quite handy. Other people use software on their computer, which again is quite useful. And others just keep it up in their head. And I'm really one of those. I trust to my imagination, I trust to my memory, and mostly I hold it all up there. I go for these walks and I sort of remember a lot of it, and then I think, oh yeah, this has got to go there. Now, I'm working on the second book, as I say, on a final draft. So I've written the second book, I know the story, I know what happens, and it's a great story, The Purple Death, and it's Splidge, it has to save the day again. And there's a lot going on in that. But I'm also working on the third book at the moment, the first draft, and I'm nearly 60%, well, I'm about 60% through the first draft of the third book, which is called The Isle of Gid. And that's about pirates and these islands, these 5 islands called the Giddy Isles. And they're to the, I can't remember now. I can't remember, are they to the east or the west? I think they're to the east of the main area of Gud. You see how confusing it can be. And sometimes I do have to go back. And that's why printing off the books, which I do, and I'll talk to you in another video about how I print off the books and go through them, and the proofing process and the editing process and the cover design. I'll talk about that in another video. But sometimes it's useful having a printed version of the first draft when you're going through it and thinking, now there's holes in the idea, there's little plot holes that don't work anymore. Hang on, and instead of trying to find it in the text on my computer where you're scrolling all over the place, it's just so much easier for me to go, here it is on page 127, and just check that bit and go, oh yes, that's the bit. That's generally when I then start to write notes down. in an ideal world, and I can see that in the future this is how I'm going to work. As I get better at drawing, I want to draw every character and then put lines up against the drawing saying flyaway hair, curly beard, scar down the side, leather jacket, you know, bad teeth, all that sort of stuff, and then have them on my wall. So instantly I think of a new character, because new characters are coming all the time, and I'll think, oh yes, that's what he looks like, and that's what he looks like. Obviously older characters like Groggins, the King, Splidge, Snotty and Doreen, I know about. But in book 2 there's new characters such as Roger Fobar, and then we're going to meet King Ralph, and all sorts of other characters who will come along. And I just need to remember all those things. So as it goes on, I do need to write more down. I'm learning as I go, but it's great fun. So that's more or less the process of writing, certainly up to the first draft. After that, of course, it does need to be improved, and all the stuff that doesn't work thrown away, the grammar checked, make sure it's readable, the spelling and all that kind of stuff. And that I'm going to save for another video where I tell you about how to publish your own book. You can self-publish, you can have them printed, or you can have them as e-books, which is very, very popular these days, if you've got an e-reader, of course, and the whole process of editing and cover design. But for now, that's how I've been working, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Till that time, goodbye.